We've covered all the houses under the horizon, all the ones that represent the subjective inner life and the early years of the individual. We've gone from birth to the world of objects, to the delight of discovery, to family, to our specialness and creativity, our sense of self. In the sixth, we maintain everything we've learned in houses 1 through 5. At the descendant line, we do something extremely important. We take the individual self we've made and we meet the outer world. The most basic interpretation of the Western horizon line is that it represents the interface between the native and other people at large. The sign here shows how you approach the wider world through other human beings. This is the most general interpretation of the descendant. However, we also find a few specific relationships represented by this line. They are all partnerships, romantic partnerships, and marriage. Not only are romantic partnerships of extremely high interest to many clients, but we know that they're central to the descendant and the seventh because in the natural zodiac, this is the position of Libra, the sign of love and marriage ruled by Venus. Remember, in terms of the horoscope, there are two Venuses. There's the earthy, sensual, practical Venus that rules Taurus. Her name is Aphrodite Pandemos. She's in the second house. At the descendant, we see a different mythical Venus, Aphrodite Oranos, the daughter of Uranus who fell from the sky into the sea. She's the dry, intellectual Venus. She focuses on partnerships, yes, but also on society at large in the way of social skills and social decorum, diplomacy, law, peacekeeping. Let's stay on romantic partnerships for the time being. Whether we're talking about the Venus that rules Taurus or the Venus that rules Libra, either keeps the same object in her hand, a mirror. The Venus of the second house, the one ruling Taurus, reflects your self-value through money and possessions, the things you select to buy and how you use money. In the seventh, she reflects your self-value through other people, how you treat them, how you let them treat you, and who you pick as a partner. Nothing says as much about the value you put upon yourself as your selection of a mate. They're your mirror. But so is the human race at large. What you think about them is really what you think about yourself. Even the most sophisticated and aware people do this constantly. I think something. It's going on in my mind, so I say you're thinking it. I project my attitudes onto you. I do something and then I say you did it. This is how that mirror works. If you want to know the worst part of you, listen to how you describe the people you despise. Mirrors reflect exactly what's there, not what you wish was there. And it works the other way too. When you love others, you feel loved by them. Christ said, "The way to the Father is through me." He didn't mean there was anything special about him. He meant that you love God and you love yourself through loving other human beings. There's really no them out there. There's only you and Venus's mirror. The greatest example of this phenomenon is partnerships, especially romantic partnerships, because while you can escape an acquaintance and even the world at large, your partner is there on a consistent basis, challenging you with your reflection in one way or another. They hold the mirror most steadily of all. Now, let's talk about the legal aspects of the seventh house and its associations with the law. The legal system is about balance, fairness, equity, and the bounds we place on human behavior. That's why marriage is in the seventh. Marriage isn't always about love, but it is always about keeping the peace and stabilizing society. The relationships we find in the seventh require the same scales used by the legal system. Anytime you begin to interact with anyone, the pans begin to swing. You have thoughts and desires, so do they. You have wants, so do they. In the best relationships, both parties are heard and something equitable is carved out. That's how law and romantic partnerships can be in the same house. The condition of your seventh and the sign on the seventh shows who you tend to pick for a committed partnership and why. It also shows how you feel about human beings in general and even gives some hints as to your sense of justice. So, what happens when the planet of intoxication is in the seventh? Neptune here dreams of love and has illusions about partnerships. They have to deal with Neptune's quest for perfection. Neptune wants a dream boat that floats in paradise. Underneath that is the Neptunian longing for pre-birth or the clouds of heaven. In other words, it wants to be perfectly, unconditionally loved forever and ever. Remember that where we find Neptune, a lot of our motives and desires are unconscious. Neptune in a house means that you don't see the reality of that house. So most of the time, these natives don't know that they have so many expectations in partnerships, and they'll even feel insulted or shocked by the idea that they're seeking a Neptunian utopia. With this planet in the seventh, there's a tendency to be drawn to needy partners. Why? Because neediness can feel as encompassing as love, and it sticks around a lot longer. These natives become drained by their partnerships. This stems from the fact that Neptune in the seventh thinks of it as legitimate to give everything and to make sacrifices for love. When their partner acts like a tick sucking on the back of their neck, they might well frame it as love or desire or commitment. Neptune isn't called the planet of distortion for nothing. They often become the strong partner to a weaker or sicker partner, and saving them becomes a project. The alcoholic, the addict, the narcissist, The person with serious emotional or psychological problems to whom they offer support and care. Neptune has an ulterior motive. They pick this kind of relationship in order to avoid their own weaknesses and frailties. If I'm the one giving support, I can't be the helpless one. Neptune here also tends to have strong political and social opinions. They worry about suffering in the world, and often their dream is to save the world. Neptune in the seventh is an empathic counselor, too, someone who seems to have an intimate knowledge of the needs of others. Because of this, they don't just draw in partners who are needy, but also those who are mystical, artistic, loose, sensitive, or somehow float through life. Because this placement tends to overgive, it's the task of Neptune in the seventh to learn about love as it pertains to equal give and take. Neptune wraps spiritual lessons up in romantic partnerships. That means real fulfilling service to a partner instead of compulsive giving. It means loving the flesh and blood person even when they don't live up to your fantasy. And it means accepting yourself when you don't live up to your fantasy. This placement is known to bring very rich relationships once the major illusions have been shattered. Disillusionment is a painful thing, but it's also the time when real world dreams can begin to come true. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk. Stay tuned for all the ways you can get in touch for a birth chart reading and full astrological services. I'm Joy. Neptune in the 8th is next.